Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're now going to look at our next webinar in the series for our OT cybersecurity. We have got, in this case, we're looking at delivering secure remote access to industrial control systems. This is part of a wider campaign that we're running. So if you've attended any others, we've got obviously some other webinars in our series. So some have already been pre-recorded, and I'll give you details of those towards the end. I just wanted to start with I suppose, how we designed our architectures through making them secure across the stack. I'm going to be focusing in on the demilitarized zone today, but obviously there are many more elements to it. But in terms of this, we've looked at the past, the present, and the future in terms of how we would perhaps structure this over the years gone by. So in the past, we'd probably really look at a completely isolated environment, and there are obviously still a lot of systems out there that look like that today. And in this case, isolation implies security, but it isn't the case, because what we'll find is, especially from like our network audits and things like that, that people often have outbound connections from that ICS, from that manufacturing zone at the bottom layer. What we certainly specify these days is a more structured approach to this. So what we're really looking at is introducing our demilitarized zone in the middle there. This brings in this concept where we have a bridge of a secure connection between our ICS or MES environment up to that business network. This allows for the possibility of a real-time connected enterprise, in effect. So information in context to business and data, etc. And if we look towards the future, and we're looking at really a connected everything environment, so what this really means is we get much more opportunity from this, but there's also risk involved. So we have to understand that risk and then utilize the technology, people, and processes to reap the benefits whilst mitigating that risk. The concept here is a bit more IoT driven. So what we're referring to here is connected assets, perhaps in a semi-unstructured way, the digitally connected supply chain from suppliers, vendors, right through to customers or other stakeholders. What if you could have a truly connected enterprise that could be connected in real time to the entire supply chain, allowing for things like maximum uptime, availability, and flexibility. Planning deliveries with real-time information on requirements, provide an accurate delivery logistics depending upon things like production schedules. Here, what we can really start to then use as well is the cloud and hybrid models as we start to progress. So what we did here was introduced a very high-level architecture. Everybody's systems are different. This is, I suppose, a high-level best practice sort of approach. And really what we're looking at here is initiating the communication and conversation. So the idea is that you cannot go from the enterprise to the manufacturing layer without that demilitarized zone in the middle there. So we're just going to focus in on this element here. So mobile working offers obviously lots of great business benefits, and we do it on a day-to-day basis in our enterprise world. So what we need to do is implement such access with risks, but the risks in that should be understood and then managed across that architecture. To use a DMZ to act as a bridge between those two zones, what we need is our business and manufacturing layers to communicate so that our business or remote workers don't have access directly to our manufacturing system. The authorized users would remotely connect to intermediary servers in the demilitarized zone, then be allowed connectivity to that manufacturing zone at that bottom layer. Intruders to the demilitarized zone would therefore only have access to the servers in that DMZ rather than being able to attack the manufacturing zone, and then obviously subsequently the production process. The DMZ also provides a good demarcation between that manufacturing zone and the business IT layer, with very little to no traffic passing directly between the two. In most organizations, it is typically more efficient to use existing systems set up by IT. In this case, a connection through the firewall from the IT remote access server is needed. In terms of examples, and I suppose where our Wonderware software fits in this, and how we can, I suppose, help with remote access through to something like InTouch Access Anywhere, we introduce our secure gateway. This acts as a gateway between users in the remote locations and InTouch applications running the control network. The secure gateway can be installed in a demilitarized zone, so you can obviously then route that traffic between an external business network and an internal HMI or SCADA network. The following diagram here illustrates how our secure gateway uses a single port for secured remote access to InTouch applications, and then all that web traffic that you see from an external business network is tunneled through an SSL-based secure gateway connection. An authentication server is installed on the same computer as the secure gateway, and this authentication server authenticates InTouch Access Anywhere users before granting them access to the InTouch applications, and that's the important part of it. And for those of you that don't really know what InTouch Access Anywhere is, it's that web front end so that you can display a complete InTouch application in a mobile form. It uses HTML5 browsers, and you can do that obviously locally to your plant, up to the enterprise layer, or even further afield if you wanted to, and obviously in a read-only or a read-write perspective as you see fit. Depends on your requirements. We do also have obviously lots of experience in data collection, how this works, and obviously our Historian product is the one that fits in here. And in this case, we do have a customer who very much has security at the forefront of their minds, and they approached us when they realized that they were accessing historical data directly at the industrial control system level. So a fundamental rule here is that a conversation has to be initiated in the OT layer and not the other way around. So to achieve that, what we suggested was that the process data should really be pushing that data to the demilitarized zone and make that data available to the authorized users. So then access for the enterprise users generally to pull from the DMZ servers. Data is then available to business reporting, mobile users, etc., etc. This allows for the process data to be used in context with much wider business reporting. You know, things like business intelligence, lots of data analytics that you can do there. So what we see here is that data from one Wonderware historian can be replicated to one or more other Wonderware historians, creating that tiered relationship. And if we look at different circumstances where that might be useful, you might want to replicate data from multiple individual historians into a single centralized historian. You may want to set up, for example, a many-to-many relationship between that lower tier 1 level up to multiple tier 2 historians. And then when your facility has a firewall, you want users on both sides of that firewall to have access to that same data, and this is that way to do that. Then if we mentioned cloud a little bit at the very beginning. So what we're really looking to do here is satisfy that business agility and reporting, allowing you to address remote plants and structures in the fastest time possible. We're really looking to enable a plant here, and our customers are starting to use these cloud services for data storage and business reporting. This will allow them to turn their manufacturing process data into powerful business analysis that is accessible anywhere, anytime. That's part of the beauty of being able to do that in a cloud-based environment. And you've obviously got things in the cloud where there's like zero infrastructure costs from your side, but also you can rely on them and their SLAs to be able to deliver that uptime. These cloud services allow for consolidation and integration of many different data sources, whether this be devices or complete entire factories, so you can have complete visibility of what's going on. And then having centralized accessibility allows for enhanced collaboration and real-time work participation. Our experience shows us that even isolated systems have outbound connections, and I mentioned that earlier with our network audits that we deliver. And this can simply occur from engineers on site being exactly that, engineers. They'll engineer their own way to get a connection from if one is actually required to do something. Of course, this is then unmanaged, and this exposes a system to intrusion. We therefore suggest that allowing access is important, but you need to ensure that you do it securely. Another example then, moving on to how I suppose we work in that cloud environment. And what we're seeing here is our growing Wonderware Online solution, and this provides our customers with the ability to store that data in a centralized cloud-based solution. Some proof points of why you would trust Wonderware Online. You can see a URL at the bottom there is trust.wonderware.com. There's lots of legal documents on there. Really good to have a look at if you wanted to see more information about how they deliver that solution. And it's financially backed with a 99.9% SLA. In this case, they're standing on the shoulders of giants, so we're really looking at combining with people like Cisco, IBM, NERC, and then Microsoft, just to name a few of them. In this scenario, we're utilizing the DMZ for a proxy server connection outbound. We ensure encryption is done in motion and at rest, and you make sure you use things like IT-friendly ports, things that are very well known like 443. And then to secure the connection further, you can also wireless the DNS endpoints. If you're going to do this through a fixed IP address, obviously with things like cloud, you can't always guarantee that the IP address won't be changed without warning. But the benefit of DNS endpoints is that they can be backed by DNS certifications for TLS encryption, making it even more secure. You also see on there's some different data centers that you can sign into, and this is really for the data storage aspect, because obviously there's different laws and regulations based on where your data is stored, whether it's in Europe or the United States, so there's a couple of different ways you can do that. The advancements of cloud, or things that we realized very quickly, is that you can see lots of different variants of like IoT solutions. So what we're not necessarily talking about here is linking complete SCADA and MES solutions through the DMZ to the cloud, but linking things like PLCs directly or devices, web services, but they still have to go through that DMZ to that cloud environment. So we're not utilizing local controls, etc. We see this through a good number of customers where data analysis is paramount, but security measures should still be taken to secure the connections through that DMZ. We do have certain customers that do leverage this technology. This is a much more growing trend that we've seen in our market. And the idea is that it's more for their rapid acquisition approach. So if they gain access to a new system, a new site, they implement secure data connections out and link the data to Wonderware Online. This provides them with the information directly from their newly acquired sites without the time delay of the project to implement SCADA and historians locally. This is something we couldn't do before without the speed and efficiency of this IoT-driven solution. It's really making it a very solid use case for that purpose. And in this scenario as well, especially when you start to look at IoT, you can even get down to a much granular level in terms of the types of devices that you're using. So what we're really referring to here is our very low-cost battery-powered type sensors in this scenario, things like Sigfox that talk over the MQTT protocol. You still need to secure it, but we're talking true IoT in that fashion. So then just a very quick summary of what we've covered in terms of that DMZ. You've seen the different types of structured approaches that we've gone through over the years. That structured approach in the middle is the one that we're all aiming to achieve. It's something that we should really have at the forefront of our minds when we're designing these network layers, zones and conduits and things in there. And then what we've also done is followed, in terms of this system, a cybersecurity maturity model, and that's an ARC-defined one. So this image shows how you progress from not having any sort of security in place all the way to the later methods. And we've only covered that DMZs in the middle there under that defend section. But the idea is that you start very small, you find out where you are in that path, you improve incrementally, and you start now. And when we look at the people, processes, and technologies, it's really important that all these things are aligned, and you've probably heard people, process, and technologies come up an awful lot in lots of different presentations. But if you invest in a very expensive security solution from a technology perspective, the people and processes, or the people have to buy into that, and your processes have to be agile to make sense that technology will work, otherwise it just won't. It almost has to be part of your culture inside of your organisation. In terms of our upcoming webinars, we do have a few more on in the pipeline. So we're going to be hosting our Protect and Virtualize Your Critical Systems in one step on the 10th of May. In here, you'll understand how you can protect and virtualize your critical systems. On the 15th of May, we will discuss leveraging virtualization and centralization technologies. Here, we'll share our vision for moving safely and securely towards an everything connected future, leveraging centralization and virtualization technologies. We do also already have 3 webinars available for download. So here we have The Threat Within by Jay Abdallah. He's actually the Global Cybersecurity Director for Schneider Electric. Very interesting presentation. It includes a brief summary of the recent ICS attacks, and it looks at the lessons that can be learned from these security events before shifting our attention to the defense in-depth solutions. We also have our full Building Secure Architectures webinar, which covers some of what we have done today, but it also includes the other elements in the architecture, but from a higher level. So it's still quite a brief presentation, but it's across the board. And then lastly, we have ransomware protection for our OT systems. So here you can see how ransomware typically infects a system and how our Proteus disaster resilience service can help you to detect and mitigate against infections early. And we explore some of the current methods our customers use to defend against ransomware, identify the gaps that can leave them vulnerable.